A prisoner of war was brought as a subject to conduct an experiment. He knew that it's now over for him and he is going to die a painful death. He was taken outside in freezing weather and was left with exposed arms, periodically drenched with water until frozen solid. The arm was later amputated. The doctor repeated the process on the victim's upper arm to the shoulder. After both arms were gone, the doctor moved to the legs until only a head and torso remained. The victim was then used for plague and pathogens experiments. This is merely one of the many cruel experiments conducted secretly behind the walls of Unit 731. But before I begin and tell you more about the horrors of Unit 731, let me warn you that this video might be disturbing for some viewers, so watch at your own risk. To understand its formation, we have to go back in the year 1925, when the Geneva Convention was signed by the Japanese government, which banned the use of chemical and germ weapons. Japanese armed forces also treated its prisoners normally until then. But everything changed when Shiro Ishii, a young army physician, read about this Geneva Convention. He thought that these biological weapons have great potential if used by the Japanese army. He gradually rose in position in the army, and finally, in 1931, the army gave permission for creating biological warfare research program and made Ishii its head. But soon Ishii realized that there is a huge problem, because these experiments that he needs to conduct cannot be done on Japanese people. As a solution, they decided to use Chinese people and war prisoners as no-cost assets. There were several Russians, Koreans, and some Europeans as well. Japan had already taken over Manchuria by 1932, and a few years later, in the year 1936, the Emperor Hirohito integrated Ishii's program into the army with its research units all over Asia. Its headquarters was established in Pingfang district of Harbin, Manchuria, which came to be known as Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department of the Kwantung Army, or Unit 731 in short. Initially, this unit began with the aim to develop treatment for diseases like cholera, typhoid, plague, which caused loss of life of many soldiers, because at that time more Japanese soldiers were dying due to diseases as compared to wars. But later it became a secret place for developing and testing biological and chemical weapons. There were several vans that captured local people, which directly took them to the unit. So they easily got subjects for the experiments. The humans who were used as subjects in these experiments were considered as marutas by the experimenters and the staff working there. Maruta is a Japanese term used for logs. They would often ask each other, "How many logs did you down today?" Vivisection was performed on men, women, and even children. Firstly, they would intentionally infect the subject with pathogens, and then they would cut them open alive. The most painful thing about this whole process was that it was done without anesthesia, with the aim of studying the effect of diseases on different organs at different stages. Most of the experiments were conducted for scientific purposes, but some experiments were performed just out of curiosity and fun, like boiling the prisoners alive, hanging them upside down, and measuring the time they take to die. Even their hands and legs were amputated and reattached on the other side, like left hand would be cut and reattached on the right side. In an interview conducted, one of the workers of unit described, "The fellow knew that it was over for him, and so he didn't struggle when they led him into the room and tied him down. But when I picked up the scalpel, that's when he began screaming. I cut him open from the chest to the stomach, and he screamed terribly, and his face was all twisted in agony. He made this unimaginable sound. He was screaming so horribly, but then finally he stopped." Other than vivisection, they were developing biological weapons. There were mainly 6 pathogens that were used in the laboratory. These were anthrax, typhoid, paratyphoid, glanders, dysentery, and plague infected human fleas. Infected fleas and rats were spread in different Chinese towns to test out these bioweapons. Food items infected by these diseases were distributed among Chinese people and children. As Japanese estimated that they had to fight Russians in the freezing temperature of Serbia, they started conducting frostbite experiments also. Army engineer Hisato Yoshimura conducted experiments by taking captives outside, dipping various appendages into water of varying temperatures, and allowing the limb to freeze. When struck with a wooden stick, these limbs would often sound like striking a board. Then several treatment methods were used, like exposing hands to direct flame or placing the hands in boiling hot water. Hisato even admitted of using a 3-day-old infant in this frostbite experiment. Some prisoners were kept in glass-made gas chambers. These chambers were then filled with lethal gases. They were injected with animal blood. They were exposed to extreme X-ray doses. They were used as dummies to test flamethrowers, grenades, and other weapons from different ranges. Subjects of these experiments went through all kinds of unimaginable tortures. Some estimates that the number of people dying due to these bioweapons could be as high as 500,000 people. Only in the building of Unit 731, somewhere around 3,000 people died. So when Japan got defeated in the World War II, the government tried to remove all the evidence. Due to this, all those subjects who survived were either hanged or poisoned, so there is no surviving evidence. Murray Sanders, an American microbiologist, was sent to Japan to investigate its biowarfare activities, where he came to know about the activities of Unit 731. Sanders finally threatened the Japanese with bringing the Soviets into the picture. The Japanese wanted to avoid prosecution under the Soviet legal system. The morning after he made his threat, Sanders received a manuscript describing Japan's involvement in biological warfare. Sanders took this information to General Douglas MacArthur, who was the supreme commander of the Allied powers and responsible for rebuilding Japan during the Allied occupations. MacArthur struck a deal with Japanese informants. He secretly granted immunity to the physicians of the Unit 731, including the leader, in exchange for providing exclusive American access to their research on biological warfare and data from human experimentation. These experiments can be considered among one of the darkest deeds of mankind.